Hello and welcome everyone to another Genshin vid. I am your host Rito Zeron, and today we're going to talk about team comps, or as I should say, my new favorite team comp. It's been my favorite since I've discovered it, but it's basically like only because of this guy right here, Kazuha. So basically, I've learned that Kazuha plus Bennett, they become a powerful buff for fire characters, and I'll explain why. First, we'll go over Bennett. We all know Bennett. He is the support character in the game. Buffs you and heals you at the same time with his special, and allows you to hit way harder than you should be able to if you put your stats together right. That's how using Bennett is usually how people are hitting those crazy numbers in like the 10,000s, 100,000s. Some of the demonstrations I've seen people do are like in the millions. So for those of you who are curious about Bennett or haven't used him yet,
where did that come from?
he is such a hilarious character. So anyway, for anyone who's never actually used Bennett before and is wondering what makes him so good, new players and people slowly building up in the game, people who may have only just recently pulled him for one reason or another. The thing about him that makes him great is his burst ability. You see, the way it works is if the health of a character within the AoE is equal to or falls below 70%, their health will continuously regenerate. The amount of HP stored scales off of Bennett's max HP. If the health of a character within the AoE is higher than 70%, they gain an attack bonus that is based on Bennett's base attack. Imbues character with AoE with the AoE within the AoE with Pyro. Blah, I don't know, I couldn't talk right there. Imbues the character within the AoE with Pyro. So that basically means he makes you stronger while healing you at the same time. Now, the base skill has it to where it's only one or the other, and you normally have to have it over 70%. But if you're able to get his constellation at the very least, at his very first constellation, it breaks that rule, and no matter how much health they have, whether it's below or higher than 70%, they're going to get the attack buff while they heal. The healing is still going to be scaled off of just whether or not they're at 70% health or not. But with the healing bonus, you can sometimes drive it a little bit past that marker sometimes. Getting other constellations are obviously going to be good for him. Now, this one, I haven't crossed the line and done C6 yet because I'm still debating on whether or not I want to make him only fire buff or if I want to still be able to buff other characters. Because once you do the C6, as it says right here, sword, claymore, and polearm wielding characters inside Fantastic Voyage radius will gain a 15% pyro damage bonus, and their weapons are infused with pyro. Now that's great if you're a pyro character, but if you're any other character, it screws up your attacks and completely messes up the entire comp if you have that. So since I haven't decided on what I want to do with them yet, I haven't crossed that boundary yet. I may one day. If I decide to make him all fire and they give us a character of another element that buffs like Bennett, then I'll go and do that. But for now, he's staying C5. So once you have that done, and of course you have his talent built up, because of course a burst is not going to be that effective unless you have it leveled up properly. I still got to push it just a little bit further myself. I just need to get just a little bit more material, just a couple of more weeks of grinding the weekly boss. And then from there, we all know that Bennett just buffs pretty much anyone and just makes them a powerhouse in that moment. And stacking on other buffs on top of it definitely helps. Now, here's where this fire buff combo I mentioned comes into play. It all has to do with our boy right here, Kazuha. Now, the thing about Kazuha is I wasn't even trying to roll for Kazuha. I was trying to get people the C4s on the banner because I was trying to C6 all of them, which I did succeed in doing for a couple. But I ended up pulling him, and it wasn't even it's been crazy. My freaking pity wasn't even there for me to pull a 5-star, and then boom, here comes Kazuha. So I just started using him. I learned how good he was. We all know now how good he is in the game, so I'm definitely glad I have him. Using that skill right there is so powerful. But there's a few things about this skill and his special, a little sneaky thing that he's able to do that's mentioned in his talents that takes him just from being a great like support and crowd control character to being a powerful buff in his own right. And the thing of it is like this. We all know what he can do in terms of gameplay and stuff like that. Swirling people, collecting enemies, and clashing them. And his swirl effect can catch pretty much elements from anywhere. Like he can swirl the freaking ocean just by standing next to it. Oh, I hear someone's about to attack me here. You're messing up the demonstration. Go away. And I'm picking your pocket. Anyway, now that distraction is over. Ooh, what's this? Anyway, okay, so like I was saying before I was really interrupted, he's able to swirl pretty much anywhere in anything. That water swirl right there, boom, he was standing right next to the ocean. He can swirl the freaking ocean. So, on top of doing everything else, he has one last thing. If you look at his passive skill, on top of everything his talents do and his constellations do, his passive has a sneaky thing that makes him a great support character, not only for single player for your different team compositions, but also in multiplayer for anyone who's running an elemental character. So if we just slide right on down here, we'll see what it says about the poetics of Fubutsu. Upon triggering a swirl reaction, Kazuha will grant all party members a 0.04% elemental damage bonus to the element absorbed by swirl for every point of elemental mastery he has for 8 seconds. Bonuses for different elements obtained through this method can coexist. So, to break down what that means, it means that Kazuha, every time he swirls, and it has to hit an enemy though. If he just swirls by itself, like for example, let me just swirl the water again, you can see the water swirling. And now if we were to go to his stats, clearly nothing happened, right? If we get some enemies near us and we go ahead and swirl the ocean, come on, there you are.
The wind knows me.
Swirl hits. And boom. If we go down here, we see hydro damage bonus 29%. Now the reason why it says 29% is because it's scaling off of my elemental mastery, which right at this point in time, I'm not done building him yet, but I've built up his elemental mastery to 747. Because on top of that, it's just gonna make, all the elements hit so much harder when he swirls. So this added bonus on here is not only, making sure that when he swirls, he is doing amazing damage by swirling different elements. He's also buffing up his partners and setting them up to do heavy damage as well. So now, how does that go into a guaranteed fire buff for Bennett and Kazuha? It's very simple. Just like it says for Bennett's burst, it imbues the other character, your character, with fire as long as they're standing in a circle. Which means that more often than not, unless another element is directly getting in the way, Kazuha is going to swirl fire upon impact on the enemies around him, which is going to guarantee a huge buff depending on your elemental mastery for whichever other fire character that you're going to use, whether it's going to be another sub DPS Zhang Ling, or my main DPS Yan Fei, or if you have Diluc or Hu Tao, that's going to give them a huge bonus and they can jump in, pop their burst and do crazy damage and continue to do crazy damage thereon after. And then just another point about Bennett and Kazuha special. Remember, they're only lasting for about 8 seconds. However, when you're using someone like Zhang Ling and she pops her special, the Pyronado, or any other character that has a lingering special or skill that will stay on the map for a while, like Fisher, for example, throwing out Oz, or Sucrose popping her special, they'll actually keep the buff even if both the swirl effect runs out the 8 seconds or Bennett's special fades away. As long as they pop it while within that buff time frame, they'll keep it for the duration of their skill and not the duration of the buff itself. So these are definitely huge batteries for characters that throw out huge specials that last like that. And lastly, just for Kazuha himself, he is special in the fact that not only can he do this, but he can also buff multiple elements at one time. His swirl actually has a special RNG to it. It has a chance of hitting multi-swirls when he uses his skill, when he uses skill. I'm not sure about his special, I don't believe so. But I know with his skill, he has an RNG where the swirl effect on impact can actually hit swirl for, I believe, somewhere between 1 and 8 times with an RNG. So that also means that if he's within multiple elements, he can also swirl multiple elements so long as there's enough enemies to get the swirl counter up. Now, here's a little demonstration on what I mean by Kazuya's multi-swirl. So I decided to pre-record this, that way I'd be able to give a better example. So I have my Zingling here. I'm just going over her stats and abilities, showing off what she has. And so looking down here, I go to show off. Right now her natural pyro damage is 55.7%. So that's her without any buffs or anything on her. I throw our little pet out for fire damage. There you go. Pop Bennett's ult. Use one swirl. I used his skill only one time right there. Keep that in mind. I used it only one time. Now, we're going to check out the buffs. Off of one skill, he multi-swirled and hit 3 elements around him, fire, water, and electric, and buffed all 3 of them at the same time. Which means if you're using a co-op team and everybody was running a different element, Kazuha can buff your elemental damage bonus, everyone's, all at once. Potentially. As long as you guys are getting the elements within his range of his swirl in time. And because of that, I run main DPS catching. If the enemies would have lived long enough, because they all pretty much died at this on impact. If I was running my catching, her lightning damage was boosted on here too. And she would have done heavy lightning damage. And so there you have it. There is the beauty of using Kazuya along with Bennett. Because using Bennett, because he's imbuing you with fire and everything, you are going to pretty much almost every time, as long as no other elements get in the way. I've only had trouble with this if I had multiple elements around me and those elements all swirled instead of the pyro from Bennett. But as long as you can make sure you avoid that, which is easily avoidable in Bennett's circle, you'll pretty much make sure. And if you are running a character like Zhang Ling, or any other character that can throw any kind of fire on the ground and leave it there, because she can throw her pet and he can just pretty much spit fire out, and that's pretty much food for Kazuya to swirl with and everything. You're pretty much feeding him in order for him to feed you fire right back. And so by doing that, you'll make sure that you hit fire swirl every single time. And so as a final demonstration, let's take on the infamous 4 rune guards and put this technique into action. See, then we're gonna throw catching in it too if possible. Oh, run out. Well, I guess he has to live first, right? Get everybody gathered up here. We all know how this works. What's spinning? Not in dance hall? Oh snap. Let's put to somebody else.
Into the wind.
No. Here it is.
Stay focused. The wind knows me. Fallen leaves adorn my.
Wait, can she not? Is she too short for the water where we're at? Let's see what we got here. Did we swirl like last time? No, we did not swirl the fire because we were too far in the water. Okay, so that is one mistake that can happen. Like I said, you can miss the fire if there's too much of another element in play. So keep that in mind as an example.
I'm going in.
Into the wind. Yes, as one with wind and cloud.
And there you have it. Good old 93%. Now let's go ahead and finish this guy off.
Don't blink.
And there you have it. That is the secret to Kazuha being an epic co-op partner. Because if you're running him in a 4-man co-op, then everybody, as long as one other person is running Bennett, then you guys can get that swirl off, and one other person has a, you know, or the other two running 2 other fire DPSs. Epic fire damage for clearing any stage that requires fire. And then on top of that, if you're just playing co-op 2 players, you get your team together. Be quiet, Ketchy, I'm trying to talk. You get your team together and you get your Bennett and your Kazuha, and as long as your teammate is running fire DPS and everything, you can keep them buffed through the entire run of whatever you're fighting. On top of that, any other element, he multi-swirls. He can swirl every element at once if he wants to, pretty much. So you use that to your advantage. You keep your team, your elemental team buffed, whether you're playing single player or co-op. Kazuha is just so good. I just love this guy. And one more thing about Kazuha, remember, all of this is scaling on his elemental mastery. The demonstration that you saw today was me having him at elemental mastery 747, and with that we was able to get a 29.9% buff on the elemental damage bonus. On top of that, understand this, I'm not done building him. I'm not finished. I still need one more artifact of elemental mastery to cap him out, and I still need to get him C2 so that his special will give him an additional 200 elemental mastery. Once I get those two, once I get that final artifact and they give us the eventual rerun of Kazuha, then that's going to take it even further. Not to mention, if you're using a character like Diona at C6, which I do have, and you're able to pop her ult, which will give even more, another 200 elemental mastery, that takes it even further. Upon testing that, I was able to push the buff from 29.9% using Diona to help him out, to get it all the way up to about 37%, I believe. Yeah. So yeah, it was 37% at minimum 35. So from 29 to 35 at a minimum. And then if you can max him out, that's going to take it even further. We're looking at a possibility of 45% elemental damage buff on any element that Kazuha swirls, if he can pull that off. So understand that Kazuha is the co-op elemental buff. He is the king of elemental mastery. Know his power. And like I said, we're just going to leave it at that. Okay guys, be sure to join us in the future as we go over other team comps. Alright, I absolutely love Genshin and continue to make more content on it as I learn new tips and tricks and fun ways to play. Remember, this game has so many ways to play it, that's what makes it so great. So, till next time guys, I'm out of here, so take care of yourselves. Till then.